I've always wanted to change the role with what I do, and one shiny might be able to do just that. The Lantern! A patron made a challenge to swipe the fabled thing most grand, and now I'm up for the job in Top 10 Puzzles I Did in Grand Hunt Volume 2! First up, a quick snack. It all starts in the Museum of Superb Relics, the supposed home of the ancient lantern. This place is also a great exhibition of the various codes used in puzzle hunts, much like the boot camp I did a while back. But the museum takes it up a notch with the flavor text labels, potentially hinting as to what is going on. My favorite exhibit there and 10th place overall is near the museum's cafe with a note on pinching pig pennies. The goal is easy to pick out, find out who ordered what. Some of the orders are straightforward, but others require a bit of cross-referencing calculations, like the stats on the kids menu and the main menu. But ultimately, I'm trying to get a final answer phrase, and the extraction steps aren't often given out. Still, I'm immediately able to pick out the very specific grid layouts as well as the title. After all, the pig's pen isn't just some random cafe. It's a nudge to use the pig pen cipher to get letters based on what was ordered and if there are substitutions. The cafe logic stands out with its depth, as most of the first round puzzles were a breeze. With my skills and codes under Pollock and Key, I have no problem unlocking the vault floor to get the lantern. But when I open the vault, wow, it's absolutely nothing! Well, aside from a postcard and a scrap of a blueprint. Looks like my rival beat me to it. Time to get cracking with the Lost Temple and hacks, but that's when the difficulty starts to take off. As the hunt starts to become a surprise one-man marathon, I can't do it all in one sitting and still need to take care of myself. But later on, the takeout receipt has quite some printer's devilry as my 9th place pick. What I mean by printer devilry is that each phrase needs to have a word substring inserted for it to make sense. One of the first ones I got was a Star Trek convention, thanks to cosplay and I prior went in with data giving me a nudge to insert tacos. Still, some of the fill-ins get trickier, but I was able to figure enough to shade primes, getting a QR code that scans to the final answer. Or not. That two-parter took me by surprise, and with prime shading not working this time, I'll need to figure out something else. The word wives looked like something else could fit in. I can make with a TH, but then I saw that the REE can make Reeves to complete the breathtaking chef. Now I can narrow my search by focusing on numbers. With 8 making way I only need a little more brute force to finish the job and get the final answer. But there's a lot more slithering around, especially with the sheer number of snakes once I step foot in the chamber, and there's a lot to work with in the snake puzzle at 8th place. Right off the bat, I could tell that this uses a slither link, where we're making a loop so that the snakes indicate how many edges touch a cell. After one-shotting the logic with knocked-out solutions, I can read part of the path to read use resistor codes, and wow were these colors hard to see. With so much transcription, I got another instruction to reverse the path and use a Rot 5 Caesar shift, which gave another instruction to place solo snakes outside the nest and extend the heads inward. But where exactly do I place the snakes? I eventually figured that the solo snakes have associated numbers via resistor codes, which just so happened to be on the border. The snakes also gave an orientation direction, but what I didn't realize is that the snakes stretched all the way, creating overlapping words I ultimately had to translate in French. There's a lot of detail all coiled up, but seeing the snakes used in so many different ways was really impressive. Now getting further into the temple, there are many parts filled with clues that tie things together with a theme. One part was a chamber with engravings of sun, moon, and stars. Right off the bat, I suspected a counting mechanism, and the math equation straight up confirmed that. The clues were also straightforward once I figured the word count gimmick and the use of sun, moon, and stars. The trickiest part was placing the clue answers, as there's not much to go off of aside from the ofs and thes locking a few of them in. But the ones I can place near the right appear later down the list, giving me enough to suspect and confirm the ordered placement. Now I can use a sun, moon, and star numbering to extract an answer phrase. Another part was a cave with stalactites, stalagmites, and debris. Right off the bat, I solved the clue about twins in space thanks to knowing Oshi no Ko, Mega Man 3, and zodiac signs in puzzle hunts. But most of the clues don't have obvious searchable answers. Still, that gem in Gemini raised my eyebrows with an obvious placement, and from there, I figured that the clue answers may have gem as a substring, along with rock and stone upon solving a few more clues. Thanks to the blanks in alphabetical order, I can make quick work of the rest of the clues with a fill-in and finisher New Dramatic, finding words with the desired substring and confirming them with a Google search. Deciding between the two was a really close call. Curious Cave had the tougher clues and satisfying neutromatic finishers, but Sun, Moon, and Stars had impressive math mechanics and placement deductions. It ultimately came down to how clever the clues were, and so Sun, Moon, and Stars lands in 7th place, while Curious Cave gets a slight edge at 6th place with a writing and theme concealment. And I finally reached the treasure! It looks to be in the treasure temple room, but that treasure is not the lantern. And before I know it, the rolling boulders made a rumble as I scrambled for the exit. Then the rival texted me that the lantern itself might be digital and more on the hacks. Upon finishing even more puzzles on the computer, I finally stumbled upon the Lantern Digital, my 5th place puzzle pick. But of course the lantern had to be encrypted with a bunch of passwords that come from all those feeder answers that round. Though most of the icons weren't hard to identify, it didn't seem apparent on how to match feeders with icons. Despite the feeders not looking like it, there actually was a concatenation mechanic, and the results are pulled from various media with a 4-digit number. With so much trial and error, I was able to not only get matches with what I have, but also backsolve one of the entries upon suspecting that 1984 is too iconic to not be an entry. These numbers also get ordered on the good old number line, but with only 9 numbers, there are 10 possibilities on the missing entry to fill out the string of 21 digits. I tried treating digits as A1Z26, but later figured indices worked out better. This also helped me see that a dot represents the present day rather than the start of the 21st century. With some letters locked in, I can pull out my fill-in-the-blank skills to anticipate entries, confirm year placements, and pull off a neutromatic finish to twiddle your thumb drive. I didn't get the lantern itself, but I did get a part to complete the lantern blueprint. Now the rival wants to read up and talk about the lantern. And another connection. As it turned out, the rival had the lantern all along. There goes my chance at being a world changer, but I might be able to play a part to activate with comparable skills as a rival, especially with all the missing connections. Speaking of which, that's also the premise of the 4th place messiness, as in mangled clues. Time to undo the transforms, solve the clues, and redo the transforms to get a bunch of names that have recognizable love interests or spouses. All that's left is an index to get my hugs and kisses, only to find that as an immediate clue phrase. Trying XOs don't work as the final answer phrase, and as it turns out, I need to find 5 in the clue phrases, as in the unmangled ones. Now I get binary for swipe as the wait, that's wrong. Might as well try the swipe is right. And now I'm thrown into the show as the next contestant with by far one of the hardest submission tasks I have ever done in Puzzle Hunt history. Creating a dating profile for my one-man team. I have absolutely zero experience in that department. My main gambit was making a calendar because a calendar has dates, right? But somehow they counted my snap decision. So yeah, adding use a calendar for a dating profile to my short list of romance advice, along with a classic don't date until college. What else will I unearth? At the rendezvous, the rival made a number of quips based on my trials through the museum, temple, and hacks. So let's talk about a few more of them. Like the burial flags at 3rd place that I have to reassemble. The carving depicts a standard gridding nonogram puzzle where I paint the cells by the numbers on the side. Or one-shot the logic with knocked out solutions again! The spaces also made easy identification for where to place the moth-eaten banners. But the hardest part was figuring the extraction. My first attempt involves reading right, left to right and anagramming what I got, but the letters I got were gibberish. I then considered stacking the banners on top of each other, and now I can see the first message. What makes this step tricky is that the nonogram layout makes the 3-dimensional stacking fairly hidden. But in a temple where the difficulty starts to ramp up, being able to unearth the cutting mechanic and letters became a major highlight for my favorite puzzle that I fully soloed. Now for my runner-up! There's no doubt a lot of skills I need to pull off in the world of puzzles as a one-man army, and you can bet even more needed to write them in the first place. So, why not have AI do some of the work? I mean, Grand Hunt used it for some of its art, well, maybe it didn't give the best direction. At least Mate's team of AIs can pull off a museum of interesting things, but Chat OMG isn't quite experienced yet when it only has a list of terms to go off of for its series of mini-puzzles at my 2nd place pick. The first one that I got was the word search. That's presented as 187 letters. I figure that's 11 times 17, so that's 2 cases for possible grid setups. Running one through the decode.fr solver resulted in some feeders showing up, but not much for overlaps. Run the other also resulted in some feeders showing up. And then the dual setup becomes apparent when words relating to word and words relating to search. Extraction took a few tries until I found I should take overlaps in each grid to spell out convention. With feeders for that mini puzzle and more getting used up, I'm starting to get a better sense on what feeder goes for which puzzle. The rhyming puzzle has some easier identification, but parts got trickier until a Nosferatu clue for Count Dracula meant I'm trying to find characters with Count in its name. The story puzzle became manageable once I saw that one of the feeders is Bowler, which is fairly close to Bowser. The maze took a bit of experimentation to find what looks to be Sleigh, which fits with Xmas vehicle. But Chat OMG's first mini puzzle was incredibly tricky because there's a lot of what looks to be gibberish. Even with the lucky find of Zawolka Geneva being Simlish via search quotes, finding the translation was an absolute nightmare without any formal dictionary readily available. I had to trudge through forums and blog sites in hopes that someone put up a translation. And after all that, along with my attempts at cryptics and examples I need clarifying, I start to see that there are leftover feeders we use for the meta. These feeders have the same length as the mini puzzle answers and conveniently has G, P, and T in them as indices to use, which makes sense as Chat OMG is seeking help from the more popular ChatGPT. Overall, these mini meta puzzles by its very nature require being skilled in a lot of different areas. I am really impressed with how far I can go on my own. No way I need it here. Now for my top pick. When finishing up the hack, I opened up the last feeder puzzle and got a really good chuckle. I immediately figured that this puzzle pick riffs on all those Mr. Beast videos that I watched. Only a matter of time given the sheer popularity. I mean, on the surface level, Mr. Beast's millions of subscribers and billions of views with all those stunts and philanthropy seem like the perfect answer on how to make an impact. No wonder so many YouTubers like Miss Monster aspire to follow his footsteps, like being meticulous in the thumbnails, but the ones in her endings have suspiciously specific geometry. That's because they serve as the overlaying card and grills, and my YouTube thumbnail experience allows me to pull out phrases to spell messages on using timestamps and getting specific words after sounds. These words sound familiar because they are part of titles from actual Mr. Beast videos. But once I got to the timestamp, I got stuck on what to do next. After all, many of the scenes don't seem to have extractable text in a similar way to Miss Monster's thumbnails. As it turns out, the card and grills also apply here to reveal hidden letters in the background. I am honestly super impressed with how the final answer of Voyagers got extracted with all those letters. Now, you may notice that multiple videos have the same word, but I can narrow it down thanks to the note on using the latest video that aired before February 20, 2024. Jimmy made a lot more production since then, but not without the unfortunately timed controversies around the time of the hunt, which got people more wary on the very nature of his mindset and work. Something Mr. Beast likely put so much focus in for the sake of performing for the wider world, but to the point that the internal health of participants, staff, and even himself might have been neglected. I too wanted to pull off incredible Grand Hunt productions for the sake of the stories I care about being seen and having meaning, but the lantern that the rival and I rekindled shined a different light. It may not be the brightest in how much or how long it gets seen, but that's because it specifically focuses more on the exhilarating moments and community we share. The thrill of a hype most grand was never about the value of the target, and arguably not the viewership either, because a more up-close and in-depth connection can be just as fulfilling and impactful, if not more. And that wraps up Grand Hunt Volume 2. I came in thinking it would be light as the first one was meant to be for newcomers, but I really bit off more than I can chew as the production really stepped up the difficulty, puzzle design, storytelling, and art specifically the ones made by actual humans. Special thanks to Constructed Adventures for brightening up my summer, and for viewers like you, thank you!